Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So we want to get to a story that we've been following very closely since the very beginning of what this new law, before it was a law, it was a bill. We're talking about Iryna's law. It's named after 23-year-old Iryna Zaruska. She was fatally stabbed on Charlotte's light rail back in August by a man with a lengthy criminal history. And so there have been a lot of opinions. There have been a lot of voices when it comes to Iryna's law. It is now in effect. It's been in effect since yesterday. And I want to bring in Julie Kay because you're following up on the story, day 2 of Iryna's law in effect. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're going to explain what's in this law. I didn't want to take that away from you, but you got a chance to speak with the new iteration of City Council.
Yeah.
They were sworn in yesterday. I'm curious. I didn't get a chance to see the story, and I was going to watch it, but I knew we were going to have you on the show.
Didn't want to spoil it.
I didn't want to spoil it at all. What were their reactions to Iryna law? Because this is a very Mecklenburg, Charlotte-centric law.
Yeah, and that's going to be probably their first task. This new council just getting sworn in the same day this very targeted law goes into effect. Of course, it impacts the whole state, but it's really Mecklenburg County. That's at the focus of this. And we'll get into the details of it in a second. But yeah, they all had a very similar message, both returning council members and new council members of, we need funding to be able to do this. That's the exact same thing that Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden has said is, this may have had good intentions behind it, but we cannot do this without financial support from the legislature. At the same time, of course, the state still does not have a state budget, but even if it did, the law here, Iryna's law, does not provide for any type of funding other than for some assistance in terms of like legal assistance. Like it provides funding for a couple more assistants and people in the DA's office. So it adds a little bit more to that, but at the same time, there's all this kind of compounding effects of, so it sets stricter guidelines for pretrial release. It potentially brings back the death penalty in the state. We're going to see how that plays out. Basically, at the end of the day, though, the crux of this is it's holding people for longer in the jail that is already in Mecklenburg County at capacity. Mecklenburg County takes on some of the other cases from other jurisdictions in the area as well. So it's not just Mecklenburg County. They are dealing with kind of a compounding flow of people from other areas that will also be impacted by this, and they are going to see, double the impacts because they have that kind of agreement with other counties in the area. So Sheriff Gary McFadden was the first one to say it. We need more funding. We need more resources. I need more personnel to do this. And we right now can't handle what this is going to bring. That's the same thing that we heard from Councilman Malcolm Graham specifically. I think the direct quote was, please, Raleigh, send us some money, something like that. That's how my story will start tonight, because I think that was the most succinct way to put it. And then I also heard from Kimberly Owens, one of the new council members, who also sent a very similar message of, we're going to try, but we need funding, and the budget for the year, both on the county and city side. I'm talking city right now, but the county is going to be and also a big part of this. That's one of their first tasks of the new year, is the retreat in January, where they talk about priorities and how they're going to fund it. Both county and city are looking at kind of a tight budget already, and so they're going to have to come up with even more room to find law enforcement funding.
It's a new chapter, I should say, in sort of the saga between lawmakers in Raleigh and then what happens here in Charlotte. We've talked about this here on the show. You're set to speak, speaking of Raleigh, you're set to speak with State Representative Jordan Lopez, who represents Mecklenburg County. I know you haven't spoken with him yet, but you have in the past. Well, I guess, can you kind of give us sort of a gauge on how he's feeling about this law?
I expect him to back up council members. He was actually there last night as all 3 new council members were being sworn in, specifically to support, I believe, District 5's new council member, who comes from the same part of East Charlotte that he represents. So he is very involved in local politics as well, local government, as kind of, I think the council was kind of encouraging, was we need more of a relationship with Raleigh to express these needs directly to them. So I anticipate he is going to say very similar things about needing funding to complete this. I'm curious to hear what he has to say about the bill itself in terms of what's in it, what he would like to see instead, or if he supports some of the measures, assuming that there's funding to complete them, to comply with them. I also anticipate, as I've heard him say multiple times before, this whole state budget fiasco needs to end. There's really no end in sight for it. We're way past the deadline. That's not uncommon, as you know, in North Carolina to miss the deadline for the state budget. Of course, we're just operating under the budget for the last 2 years, but that means that we can't add funding for things like this. We also can't give teachers raises. We can't do all sorts of things that requires a new state budget until.
And I believe law enforcement is included in those raises as well.
Exactly. And so if we want to retain law enforcement, as Sheriff McFadden has mentioned, that probably includes higher salaries and things like that, especially with North Carolina or Charlotte being right on the border with South Carolina. There's competition involved. Same story we've seen with teachers. So I expect that Representative Lopez will focus on the budget as the story here itself, and Iryna's law as kind of an arm of this that is just kind of emphasizing the problem we've already got. Whether or not you support Iryna's law or not, what's in the law, I think a lot of people would say it has very good intentions, but everyone involved in this in terms of funding has to say there's just not enough.
Have we heard from GOP leaders at all, or anybody from the GOP side? Not to put you on the spot, but have we heard from them? I don't know. They held press conferences regarding Iryna's law.
So interesting. I haven't heard directly back on this. Hey, we need more funding as of last night from council members, but. Kind of the messaging from the GOP that I've heard from Speaker Destin Hall, from Senate Pro Tem Phil Berger, is we actually need to look into how Mecklenburg County is using their funding as is. We need to do kind of their whole message kind of coming from the Trump administration has been cutting out excess spending, fraud, waste, abuse, things like that.
You've covered the Doge-like committee here in North Carolina, which is not a thing federally anymore, Doge. But you've covered that. So they've tried to mimic kind of the same concept at the federal level here in the state, which is kind of a tricky line to walk because any kind of funding that they're looking at the state level, we've been had a red-led government for years, so they're kind of going back. They had a supermajority for a few years.
For a few years, So any funding that would be recent at the state level, they'd be kind of walking back their own side. So I see them kind of looking more at counties like Mecklenburg County of, you should have the funding for this. Where else are you spending it? So actually more looking at ways that they should cut back as opposed to more funding. And so I don't see that being the story that we get out of this new budget cycle is, yes, there's going to be more funding for Mecklenburg County. And so, to be honest, I'm not really sure where things go from here. I know that also the tension between the state legislature and Sheriff Gary McFadden with some of this House Bill 318. That's the bill that, requires more county governments to work directly with ICE. There's been some tension over that. Again, Sheriff McFadden has had the same story of, this requires us to hold people for longer and we're already at capacity. And so there's kind of a history of disconnect between Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office and General Assembly. And so I don't foresee that changing anytime soon.
Well, when can folks, again, a lot of stuff can change, lots of stuff can change between now and when your story airs. Well, when can folks catch your story tonight? 5 and 6. 5 and 6, you can catch Julie. Julie, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
As usual, we'll have you back in here soon, I know, because something's going to happen. We're going to need your input.
Knock on wood.
All right.